Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Trigonometry. This episode, solving angles. What is in it? Well, spoiler alert, I guess, to keep with the theme. Uh, Labeling the sides the same as before. Next, when we are writing the actual steps down, those are also the same by design. Right? However, what's going to be different with this type of question is the last couple of steps, an alternate ending, if you will, to get to the answer. So let's put up a question and see how these pieces all work. Because we're looking for an angle, we need to have some sides in place. That is, we need to know the numbers for a couple of sides. This thing, it's starting to look like a bit of a sailboat there, but if you allow me, straight line, straight line, straight line, right angle triangle. The angle we're looking for, as we'll call it A down there. Question is, how big is angle A? How big is this? Well, I'm going to suppose that we are given that this side over here, whatever that side may be called, is a 12. And I'll say that this side over here is a 24. Now, on the earlier slide at the start, I was just saying the labeling is going to be the same. The steps are going to be the same. Have, need, all that stuff. Okay, it's just the ending we got to pay attention to. Okay, so let's get into that. So the first step was to circle the angle. It's the way the cool kids do it. Next is to label the sides. That's the hypotenuse. That's adjacent. This is opposite. Put the side here. Next, we write down what we have and need. And see, last time it was just sides. We need an angle now. So let's see how this works. It's going to be a little different. What do we have? We have the hypotenuse. And we have the opposite side. And what do we need? Need an angle. And we know which one because we circled it. Well, now it's business as usual. The next step is invoke SOHCAHTOA. And decide which trig function we're going to use. We have the hypotenuse. We have the opposite side. So look at that. It's just going to be S then for sine. So we'll set it up just like before. Sine of our angle is opposite because that's what we had to select. Opposite over hypotenuse. Sine, top, bottom. Sine, top, bottom. We get particular. What are the numbers for this question? What are the letters now for this question? Instead of an angle, instead of the word angle, we put A in there because that's what it's called. Other questions, it might be X, Y, whatever. Big letters, though, by the way, as an aside. Big letters for the angles. Small letters for the sides. But I digress. The opposite side is 12. The hypotenuse is 24. And now, I guess we can do one more step. Actually, no. I'm going to leave it like this. Because now was the alternate ending. And now what happens is we got to solve for the angle. Now, I'm going to write the math down to show you how that looks. And then I'm going to flip the page. We'll have to talk a little bit about how to actually do it, the technology side. So, math-wise, if you remember, I don't want to write it down because I'm just ringing on real estate. Maybe up here. If you have 2x is equal to 7, you got to undo the 2. So it's multiplied there, you divide. And then it's gone. It's called take the inverse. Well, we got to take the inverse of sine. And that will create this. The inverse of sine, that is the inverse of whatever trig we got here, inverse of sine will undo it. So that means, just like the 2 is gone over here, this sine will be gone when we take the inverse of it. What does that do to the right side? Well, the inverse is over there. And there's a couple of different ways of writing this. So the -1 like this is one version. Okay, but importantly, it means inverse in this style, not reciprocal or 1 over. Other versions are INV for inverse, so INV, SIN, or arc sign as well, ARC, SIN. But as you can see, a little narrow here, so I'm going to do it this way. Now, there are certain fractions, certain values that you will come to know, and you will get them like that. But otherwise, you're going to be stuck punching buttons in your calculator to figure this out. So, at this point, I will say calculate in whatever capacity you know, or with whatever capacity you know. And then you'll get the answer from this from your work. And in this particular question, it will be 30 degrees down there at the bottom. Okay, so just to go over everything again. 1, you draw it. 2, circle that angle. Just saying. Then label the sides. Keeping track of what you have and what you need. Use SOHCAHTOA to then decide how to set up the equation. SOHCAHTOA, then the setup. You get particular for the question, and then you do the algebra that's necessary to be successful. In this case, we have to do something a little different. The alternate ending is take the inverse of this trig function, which means the inverse of whatever fraction you get there. And at this point, technology is your friend, and you'll get the answer coming out. So now we know down here, the angle is going to be 30 degrees in there. And that completes the question. Okay, so let's try one more. Let's do one more. No try. This is the situation. You've got to find the angle. Angle of the triangle. Angle of the triangle looks like this. The triangle looks like this. 90 degrees. I'm going to put it up there today. Just for fun. Call it B. Just because. And I'm going to choose some nice numbers because as you can see, oh, yeah, I got to talk about the calculator. Okay, I'll do that after. I'll do this one first. Say, I'll say this part's 16. And as you might guess, I'm going to say this part is 8. Nice numbers for me. Calculator free. Okay, so these two, they look the same, but this is a capital letter for angle, so that's a capital B. That's an 8 down there. So how big is the angle? So let's do this at speed. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, and pause the video if you want. Right? Pause it, try it ahead of time. And then the answer will come afterwards and you can check. So, at speed again. Circle the angle. Label the sides. That's a DJ, hypotenuse. This is opposite, but not interesting for this question. Yeah, I got the sides labeled. Have need. I like this. Creates a section. Let's put that in there. What do we have? Hypotenuse. What do we need? Or no. What do we still have? Adjacent. What do we need? Angle. Could call it angle B if you want, but it's really the sides that shape the next step, which is SOHCAHTOA, and then deciding which ones to choose. HH, AA. This one. Set it up. Notice I'm gonna, well, I probably should have put angle in there, but that's, wait, see? Adjacent over hypotenuse. Just copying that. Get particular. Got particular a bit too soon. See? Look what happens. Don't mess it up. So we get back on track. Cos B is adjacent side. 8 on the top. 16 on the bottom for the hypotenuse there. This is what we got now. Can't multiply across. We don't have a number there. So we got to do, invoke the inverse. Gives you a B on that side. Give you an A if you get this right. 8 over 16, which I happen to know is a half, and cos inverse of a half is 60 degrees. And that creates it. So that should be, I'm not sure how long that took, but should be about the same for you. Again, keep the steps rather consistent so that you don't make any sloppy mistakes along the way. Then you can have a successful run at a question like this. But we got to do this alternate ending part in case you're not sure how to do this piece. Alternate ending. So what this has to do with is using your calculator to find the angle. Actually, to get the angle. Actually, what I'll do is bring up the last step that we had from earlier question. And that was this. B is equal to cos inverse of 8 over 16. So we'll work with that. Now, if you take a look at your calculator, for sure you'll see the sine, cosine, tangent buttons there. And if you take a closer look, you'll see really buttons that look like this with the -1. What I was saying, you might see that, or you might see this. 1C? 1C, I think. All right, so the arc version, the inverse version, and just the, I'm going to call it the normal version. Now, so what you got to do is you have to know your calculator and the order of the buttons that you actually have to punch. So I'm going to suggest that in your calculator, what you're probably going to have to do first is an inverse button of some sort that will be INV, or I've seen on some calculators it's yellow and second. Maybe a shift or something like that. But basically it's to get into the inverse functions. Usually on the upper left part. And I should show you with my, see here I got, it's this one. Second.